And there's a bunch of other stories in that's what it is. Tales of Bounty Hunters. It's a short story collection, and every bounty hunter kind of gets a short story. And the Boba Fett one is really interesting. It's really good, and it's almost the best ending you could imagine because it's actually a Boba Fett Han Solo story. And it's really interesting because it's almost the best ending you could imagine. And let's see, when they published Tales of the Bounty Hunters, they were at about 15 to 17 years after Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
When they published the first books that were after Return of the Jedi, that was the Thrawn trilogy. They were set 5 years afterward, and then some of the next books they filled in that 5-year gap, and the rest, and went further. 7, 8. There used to be a nice chart of everything that happens post Return of the Jedi, all of which is now irrelevant. But back then, back in the day, I think all of us kind of, at least most of us more far-seeing fans, we all knew that if a 7th movie ever happened, then everything was going to be rendered,
obsolete.
That's just the way it was going to be.
Yeah.
But we never thought there was ever going to be a 7th movie.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when they started making the prequels, it seemed like less of a possibility, I think.
Yeah, I know. I don't remember exactly when I learned that there were 3 trilogies.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time, when Phantom Menace, goodness sakes, I'm screwing up names.
No, I think everybody pretty much calls it,
Phantom of the Menace?
Because they all feel like they're being menaced by that movie.
They're being menaced by Jar Jar. That's
right.
That's the
he
main
is the Phantom.
complaint.
He is the ghost that haunts Star Wars.
I'm sorry, I got some videos that are that's actually true. When I heard that there were 3 trilogies, and the first trilogy that came out was the middle ground, and then we had the prequel trilogy come out, and as that was going, episode 2 and episode 3 start coming out, and at that time between episode 2 and 3, I was fully aware that, when George Lucas was initially doing up the scripts and the story and everything like that, and it got too large, then he split it up into 3 trilogies, to be able to tell all the story that he had for this, that he created, and I was like, okay, so he had stuff for 3 trilogies, ideas, and we'll say like a just kind of general layout, but it's like as the prequel trilogy was going on and then completed, it's like I never saw the last trilogy as something that was ever going to happen, especially under George Lucas's helm. But then with him selling it, now to Disney, and now here we are.
Yep.
Goodness sakes, we're less than a year away.
Yeah, we're 9 months. We're 9 months till the baby comes.
I was trying to do the math real quick in my head, but I got stuck on April just being the 4th month of the year, and we got to get to December. I was stuck on that. I couldn't do anything else.
Well, the moment I started hearing people say that, when they were talking about the trailer, and then we got 9 months till the movie comes out, that's all I could think of.
Well, I know. I've been seeing where they've been actually doing like the countdown of the days, like this many days.
Oh yeah.
Until this.
I can imagine. Yeah.
And I'm like, you guys are gonna drive yourselves nuts. I know
they're already nuts.
Yeah,
so it's not out of their way to take a side road.
well, what's crazy when you're already crazy?
Sanity.
There's got to be now it's more of a reality now that we've gotten to see.
Well, And, well, yeah, but there's also the who would ever thought that even if we were going to get another trilogy, that we were going to get Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher, and all these other guys all back together again. Who'd have ever thought that would have ever been a possibility?
Yeah, really. It is really... I'm excited about that just as much as anything else about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if they're really just kind of in this one, I imagine them making some appearances in the other ones, but, you know, really, this is going to be the handing off of the torch.
Right.
And, you know, passing it on. You know.
Right. And that's gonna kind of be it's a little bit difficult for us to, you know, to really comprehend that, wow, you know, these people we grew up with, they're getting old, and to comprehend the idea that that Star Wars is going to have to go on without them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to me, I mean, that's, I don't know, that's a real sobering kind of thought.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I'm totally expecting at some point in this next movie that Han Solo is essentially going to be handing over the keys of the Millennium Falcon. I'm expecting it. Because
That's a very good point, because how can you have Star Wars without the Millennium Falcon?
Yeah. Especially since they've been making, you know, really building up the fact that Millennium Falcon is in this movie. Mm-hmm. Millennium Falcon's here. We got it. We built sets for it. And, you know, they've shown it off in both of these trailers, you know, in action. Mm-hmm. And so they've made a big deal about it. And I'm expecting this to happen and to be part of that passing on of the torch.
Partly, I think that's a reaction to the prequels, which didn't have any of those same familiar ships that we all recognize. Yeah. That there, you know, there were no X-wings, there were no TIE fighters, there was no Millennium Falcon. There was none of those iconic designs that even if you're not a hardcore Star Wars fan, you know what the Millennium Falcon looks like.
Yeah.
And so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've kind of been... We've taken a really long rabbit trail here.
Yeah.
So, dialing back. Okay, so the Boba Fett short story is set like 17 years after Return of the Jedi. I mean, almost 20 years. I mean, and when we first see Han Solo in the story, he's basically just sitting around bored. He's like he's on like Coruscant or somewhere, and Leia is off doing some kind of diplomatic thing. The kids are somewhere else. Luke is running his Jedi.
The kids are off unattended.
Well, they're like teenagers now.
Okay.
So they're probably with Luke at the Jedi Academy or whatever. I mean, they're learning the ways of the Force, and
Okay, there we go.
I don't even remember Chewbacca being in the story, so I'm like, even Chewbacca isn't here. That's how isolated Han is. Even Chewbacca is not here.
It's his pal.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially his best friend. Right?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, also trying to imagine that, you know, I mean, Harrison Ford is older now than he would have been 17 years after Return of the Jedi. So, you know, it's kind of interesting trying to imagine Han Solo at that age and, you know, feeling old, already feeling old, and just kind of bored and also kind of a little, I felt a bit out of place. I mean, because he's a smuggler. Yeah. You know, he's a rough kind of guy, and here he is in basically a mansion, a palace. And he doesn't know what to do with himself.
It's like, yeah, the grass may be greener, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, and considering all the action and all the shenanigans that they've had to deal with in the expanded universe over the last 17 years, there was actually a lot of really cool stuff that even in the expanded universe I kind of felt like didn't get as much attention as they should have, because one of the things that was going on in that, in the first 5 years post Return of the Jedi, and Solo is a general. So one of the things he had to do was he had to actually basically lead a campaign against this certain other. I mean, because when the Death Star exploded, the Empire just kind of fractured. Mm-hmm. From the first, the Empire just kind of fractured into different factions.
Yeah.
Which was an immense help, of course, to the New Republic, because that means they weren't fighting a united enemy anymore. Yeah. So they could basically just take on each warlord one by one. So that was one of the things that Han Solo did. He led Rogue Squadron and those guys in a campaign against one of the Imperial warlords. And I always felt like that idea never got as much attention as it should have, because it was just kind of a thrown away thing.
Yeah.
And that really should have been given a lot more attention.
Yeah, I mean, that interests me.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of Han Solo leading as a general, kind of leading an armada, I mean, I would love to see something like that.
Yeah, because you imagine he'd be throwing some unconventional strategies.
Yeah.
Where you'd probably have some other underlings underneath of them who, maybe think, hey, I know this better than him, So you'd have a little, You'd have some drama there to throw into your story, into the story, but, while you've got their overall.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And so, anyway, okay, but that's in the past now. All of that's in the past. And now he's just an old guy who's, been from one end of the galaxy to the other and is pretty much seen everything. I mean, when you've seen 2 Death Stars blow up, you've seen everything.
Yeah.
Unless you're Wedge Antilles, who actually was right there blowing up 2 Death Stars and came out of it alive. Yeah. He's the unsung hero of the whole story.
It's like, where's my medal?
I'm sure he got one in the second time.
Yeah. He should have.
And Boba Fett is basically kind of in the same boat. He's just getting old. Needless to say, being swallowed by a Sarlacc is not good for your health. I mean, his entire body was just wrecked. Wrecked by being in the Sarlacc's digestive system. He's missing a leg. He's now got a prosthetic leg. His entire body is just messed up. He's kind of in that place where he's looking for that last job, that last bounty. So he can kind of retire, because he's just getting old. His body just isn't what it used to be.
Yeah, he's too old for this stuff.
Yeah, and there's this. Okay, and so I forget the exact circumstances, but anyway, they both kind of end up on the same planet. Han is trying to relive his glory days, and he's kind of trying to, get a shipment for smuggling. He wants to smuggle something. He just wants to do something.
Yeah.
He's trying to convince himself that he's still the same Han Solo.
He's still got it.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, but there's Boba Fett gets contacted because he goes after Han. So there's some kind of bounty on Han. Obviously, there must still be an Imperial bounty on him. So he sees the bounty. He sees it, so he takes it. And long story, well, it's a short story. So short story short, the story ends with the 2 of them in a Mexican standoff where they've both got their blasters on each other, point blank range. Neither of them can miss. There's where it's just the 2 of them after 30 years or whatever, facing off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, and there's this, you know, and Han Solo says, why aren't you pulling the trigger? And Boba Fett says, you first. You know? I mean, they're both kind of stuck in this moment where they're both suddenly kind of wondering, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah. I imagine like the next scene, they're both there at the bar, just drinking their worries away.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know. That's they kind of trade a few words, and they kind of say, well, maybe we're both just too old for this. Maybe we should just walk away. We should just walk away and just go home. And Boba Fett says, yeah, or maybe we should just let it go. We should just let it fly, like when we were young. And that's where it ends. And you know, because there's like 10 more books after that neither Han Solo nor Boba Fett pulls the trigger. Because they both keep going.
Yeah.
But it's like almost the most perfect ending you could imagine in a certain respect. You know, just the two of them, you know, squaring off, and that's it. And you're sort of left to
decide for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of what happened.
I don't always like those kind of endings, but
Sarah hates them. Sarah hates
yeah,
them.
I'm not a big fan. Yeah. I think sometimes they work, most of the time they don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but in this case, it's like you don't really want to see Han Solo die. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody wants to see Han die.
Yeah.
Nobody really wants to see Boba Fett die either. So, I mean, you're left with a unsolvable problem there. So I think that short story solves that in the only way you can. Is that instead of, you know, offing one or offing both, it just leaves it.
Yeah. And
it's up to you to decide.
Yeah. Yeah. It leaves it up for the audience to decide, you know, to kind of choose a path that they're more comfortable with, you know, rather than the author putting a period on it, essentially, and saying, this guy dies. I like this guy better. This guy dies.
I mean, yeah, you can't. No matter what you did, you wouldn't win, because you'd have, you know, there'd be people hating you forever.
Oh yeah.
No matter how you ended that scenario. But it also wouldn't necessarily feel complete. You know, I mean, I think you could make it work, but it wouldn't necessarily feel right if you just had them just lower their blasters and just walk away.
Because then it doesn't make for a good ending.
No, it's. I mean, I think it could, but
yeah. There's a certain degree where, well, then it's not technically an ending though. You know, because if we're looking at a story, you know, start, you know, middle, end, you know, doing it that way, that just like that doesn't really create an ending for what we had here. You know, whereas you know, just leaving it there, where you know, it's leaving it in that tension.
Yeah.
You know, that's more of an ending than just all of a sudden tension's gone and they walk away.
And it also deals with something that Star Wars really hasn't dealt with. You know, I mean, which really Star Wars, in a certain respect, can't deal with, because Star Wars is a Saturday morning matinee escapism. But this story really deals with mortality. With, you know, these two guys who've lived, you know, in the fast lane their whole lives, but now suddenly they realize that they're old. You know, Han Solo's got to have gray hair by now, because Harrison Ford had gray hair by that time. So obviously Han Solo must as well. And,
Harrison Ford, Han Solo, what's the difference?
Nothing as far as I'm concerned. and Boba Fett, same thing. It's they're dealing with the fact that they're just not the young men they were anymore. And you're dealing with the fact that, it's going to be interesting to see if the new movie actually touches on this at all. It's the idea that, nobody lives forever. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see if how they maybe apply that in this new movie. The idea that eventually, as Game of Thrones insists on hammering into us, all men must die.
Killed off.
Yeah, but
like that. But we all have to accept that it's going to happen eventually. But I don't think we want to see it.
I don't really see that there's any reason to kill the characters.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are saying that they're just 100% certain that Han Solo is going to die in this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of people who really do think that that's going to happen, and that's because Han Solo or Harrison Ford wanted Han Solo to die 30 years ago. So that's their proof. That that even that 25 years ago, back in Empire Strikes Back, he wanted Han Solo to die at the end of the movie. So that means he's finally going to get his wish all these years later.
Just kill me off.
And that is such flimsy evidence. It doesn't even make it into court.
No. Because at this point, to me, it's not up to Harrison Ford to decide this. It's up to Disney, J.J. Abrams, the people that are writing the script and doing this. Like, what are their plans for this?
And honestly, I do not want Han Solo to die. I don't want Luke to die. I don't want any of them to die.
Especially not in the films.
No.
These big budget, the big time films. These here, totally inevitable. It's gonna have to happen eventually at some point in the fiction.
Mm-hmm.
But not in the movies.
Mm-hmm. There's too much emotion attached. There's too much personal connection to Star Wars to me for you to get away with that. And I can imagine that somebody like Abrams would really want to do something like that, just because it'd be the same thing like they did in Star Trek, where they blew up Vulcan. Now you know that anything can happen.
Yeah.
We're going to kill one of these guys just to prove we can do that.
Yeah. And
that's, but to me, that'd be such a cheap trick.
Yeah.
And these are not just characters. Han, Luke, and Leia and them. These are icons. These are figures just kind of embedded deep in an entire generation. Now, whether that's going to continue for the next 2 or 3 generations, who knows? But for a lot of people, these people are just so definitive. Even though we're, the Han, Luke, Leia story is, in a sense, over. Mm-hmm. And has been over for 30 years. I'd still argue that that still would not be appropriate.
Yeah.
Especially since, it's been over. Now you're going to kill him?
Yeah. It'd be very painful, for the audience. They come in, they're excited to see these characters on the big screen again.
Mm-hmm.
The actors, these characters again.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, a massive sucker punch, essentially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It would be.
If you ask us, I guess.
Yeah.
If you ask us.
Our opinion doesn't actually matter.
No.
But that's what we say, and we stand by it. And if you don't listen to us, you're evil. If I was to really get into the fandom, the feeds for Star Wars right now.
Yeah.
There'd be just, everybody would be discussing, there's so many spoilers out there that may not even be real.
Yeah.
But that there are people who are already discussing the plot. They're already discussing everything that's happened. So, I don't want that. I do not want to know anything.
Yeah.
I want to live in complete ignorance until I'm sitting in the theater.
The opening credits scroll.
Yep.
And we have whatever they're gonna do for the opening, reveal.
Hey, no scroll.
Yeah.
Oh, they're gonna do that.
Yeah.
If they don't do that, then we're in the wrong movie.
I think the most shocking thing is going to be when we don't have the 20th Century Fox.
That is going to be deeply hurtful.
Which this next trilogy, these new Star Wars movies, we're not going to have that. Something that's been just as iconic with Star Wars. The opening. You have the 20th Century Fox opening, and then
Lucasfilm, and then a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
And then
boom!
Yes.
Just in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and now that the trailer's dropped, everybody's kind of saying that, it looks like we're going to really see the wars in Star Wars. That's what this trailer showed. That's what we're going to see. And well, yeah, and I realized that's exactly what was wrong with the trailer. I now know the biggest problem with this new trailer that just dropped. There were no stars. It's Star Wars, and we never saw any stars. Where are the stars? And I'm not talking about Harrison Ford and Chewie. I mean the literal stars. There were no stars. We're all on a planet. There's no space. Where's the stars?
We're going the unconventional route. Everything takes place on one planet, on the ground.
Yeah, that's what we come to Star Wars to see.
Yeah.
An overextended episode of Star Trek.
Boy, we just made a lot of people angry.
That's set in Bronson Canyon.
Never thought of that.
I know. It just
it comes to you at the weirdest moments, huh?
Yeah. Well, when they say, we're going to see the war in Star Wars. And then I sit back and go, but what if I want to see the star in Star Wars? And then I thought, there were no stars in that trailer. No, it's just like, I mean, I'm sure we're going to see stars in the movie.
Here's what's going to happen. The opening scrolling blocks of credits are going to go, it's going to be in space, and then it's going to scroll down to the planet that we're going to be on, and then from that point on, no more stars. Except for, any sequences filmed at night on the planet.
Let's start talking about stars. What were we talking about before or we were stargazing? Okay, we don't want Han Solo to die.
No.
If he dies,
not in the movies.
That's going to be heartbreaking. It would almost be a nice. I mean, in a certain way, it would almost be a nice send off for Harrison Ford. In that respect, but we're not there yet. I don't see any reason to go there yet.
I mean, if they're going to do it, if they planned it, they're going to do it. Maybe not first movie. Not first movie in trilogy.
No, I mean...
Second movie.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you were to do that in the first movie, that would be very... That would be such, like you said, a sucker punch to everyone who is just so thrilled to just have a new Star Wars.
Yeah.
That would just kind of really hurt the experience.
Yeah, and see, if they needed to do it, if they wanted to do it, if they needed to do it, the second movie would fit a little bit better because, in the trilogies, and the second movies are always the ones where everything goes to crap.
Mm-hmm.
Where that's when that's supposed to happen.
That's just drama right there.
Yeah.
The second movie is when the drama kicks in.
Yeah. It too.
But it has to be under the most extreme of all possible circumstances.
Yeah.
He's got to save that bus full of children.
Yeah.
No, not even a bus. Yeah, that bus.
A Star Cruiser full of children.
No, he has to save the universe.
Yeah.
The entire universe has to be at risk.
Yeah.
That is all I will accept. Only if the entire universe, because otherwise, that bus full of kids versus Harrison Ford, the kids are gone. The kids don't matter.
Kids.
Harrison Ford matters more than that bus full of kids. I'm sorry. Only if, all the billions upon billions in the universe are at stake. Does the math
the whole of
even
reality.
out? That's right. Of course, I could also understand that, since Harrison Ford seems to keep trying to get himself killed, that maybe they should kill him in the movie so that they don't have all that pressure.
We should take his aviator's license away.
He'll just find something else, I think. But on the other hand, if you think about it, he's been a pilot for, 30, 40 years or whatever, and if this is like the only time he's ever crashed a plane in all that time, that's a pretty good record.
Yeah.
And that he managed to do it so well that, he didn't damage anything, he didn't hurt anybody, and he walked away from it. He had a broken leg, but he walked away.
Yeah, I imagine there are like judges there, and they scored his crash landing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an easy thing to land a plane on a golf course. No. It's just not.
It's not an easy thing to land a golf ball on the golf course.
Exactly. I mean, and that's, so it'd be interesting to see if any of that that feeling that short story had, that feeling of mortality, of getting older, of facing one's own end, basically. Impending end.
Yeah.
If any of that translates into the movie at all, would be kind of interesting. I'm not gonna expect it, and I'm not gonna be hurt if it isn't there. We have no idea what the theme of this new Star Wars movie is going to be, and nothing to do with music. What the theme of the story is going to be, because I mean, the theme of the Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan, the entire theme of the movie is kind of about getting older, because that's what Kirk is going through.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a feeling of
not mortality, but of getting up in the years.
Yeah, I mean
aging.
it's kind of there, especially since Spock dies in Wrath.
Yes.
Spoiler alert. But honestly, if you haven't seen Wrath of Khan, you just...
Then why are you a Star Trek fan?
Well, why are you even here?
Yeah.
Go watch Wrath of Khan and come back.
Okay. In a Star Wars discussion, you just told them to go watch a Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
Okay. You went there.
Because if you haven't seen Star Wars, what reason do you have to live on this planet other than to see Star Wars?
Yeah.
It's like learning how to drive.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that you do in this culture.
Yeah.
Now, if you're living in a whole other culture that doesn't have television or cars, our sympathies.
Yeah.
You have all of our sympathies. We're sorry.
I don't have television, I don't have cars, but they have YouTube.
I mean, there are certain themes in all of the Star Wars movies, and we don't really know what the theme of this movie is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so is this going to be all about new beginnings, endings, transitions?
Yeah.
Or is it gonna be just lightsabers? Just more.
Yeah.
The theme of the movie is lightsabers.
Lightsabers. Yes. Lightsabers with designs fans can't quite comprehend.
Well, they can comprehend it. They just can't agree on it.
Yeah. I stand on the. I think it's pretty much been well confirmed that they're cross guards.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's what's been confirmed as cross guards.
I don't know if there's any confirmation of that, but that's what we're
going with. Everything I'm hearing is it's been confirmed in the cross guards.
Yeah.
I liked the idea of them being like exhaust ports because it's unstable. The crystal is unstable. That's what I liked. That was the thought process I had. and that I liked. And it's like, that made sense to me. And then everybody started saying crossguard, and I'm like, what?
What is a okay? What does a school crossing guard have anything to do with?
Yeah. But, I mean, I'm surprised. Am I the only person that went off and didn't see that as a crossguard, but thought of that as exhaust force? Because
no, I've heard that from some other people.
Okay,
as well.
Good.
You weren't
I'm not
the
alone
only
in the
one.
world. All right.
But that was the least likely possibility.
Really?
That's what I think most people kind of went with, is that, okay, that's a possibility, but it is honestly the least likely.
Goodness.
But who knows? You may be proven right. Who knows?
We'll just have to wait till December then, huh?
That's right.
I would love to be proved right. That'd be sweet.
I'm sure.
I was right.
I'm sure there's some pool in Vegas right now already taking bets. Is it a crossguard or is it exhaust ports? You just gotta lay down your money and and get proven right, and you'll make off like a thief in the night, man.
Yeah, man. Too bad I'm not a gambling man. We can't take him seriously.
We can't take him seriously. Let's
Mr. Hood.
Yeah. Let's hear from the Red Hood over here. Okay.
Yeah, we're getting somewhere now.
Now we're.
Well, yeah. I like the comedy and the action sequences as well. It really breaks the monotony and can just make a unbearable movie watchable. I don't mean that by this movie.
Yeah, like a Marvel. Yeah. It makes a Marvel movie bearable.
Oh yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, if there was no comedy there, that thing is unwatchable. I mean, throw that sucker into the trash can right now. You suck all that comedy out, and